Good evening to all. Welcome to special lecture series program for undergraduate students, finance and its allied areas, organized by Kolkata Bidhannagar Society for Academic Advancement and coordinated by Azure Academic Services. Today our guest faculty is Soumyatanu Adhikary sir. He is assistant professor and head of Department of Business Administration, THK Jain College, West Bengal, India. Today's topic of discussion is issue of share. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coordinating. Yes, I am Soumyatanu Adhikary from THK Jain College. I am the head of the Department of Business Administration. I have been teaching in this college since the inception of BBA Department of Business Administration in the year 2018. And so today I am very thankful to our society, KBSSA, and Azure Academic Services for providing me with this opportunity to deliver a lecture session on issue of shares. So if we move on to this particular topic, issue of shares, the first thing that we need to understand, like this topic is almost there for all undergraduate students, whatever course you are doing, be it a BCom course, be it bachelor's of business administration course, or at times it is also used in master degree courses like MBA and MCom. So this is the concept which is very very important for all the students, mostly for the undergraduate students to know. This topic is already a little bit known to the commerce student who have studied 11 12 in commerce. It is a little bit known to them because this topic is already there in the NCERT syllabus of CBSE in class 12. So what we are going to do is we will delve into the topic, and first let us first initially try to understand what are shares, and then we will move into the concept of issue of shares. Okay, what do we mean by issue of shares? So what is shares actually? Shares are small parts of the company's entire capital. Now what do we mean by then the concept comes about the capital, and as you know, capital is the money that is invested into the business to start the business, to own all its assets, and to make itself operational. Now this part of capital, the part of capital which is owned by uh, the shareholders, or you can say by the owners, is known as the share capital. So share capital means basically means the capital raised by a company by issue of shares. Many individuals are there. There are institutions who contribute varying sums to the company's capital, but yet the company do not prepare a separate capital account for them, for each of these individuals or institution. There is one consolidated capital account that is known as a share capital account. Now what is a particular share? The entire capital is broken into small parts, okay, and each one of these part is known as a share. Okay, share means if the total capital of the company is broken into a number of smaller parts, each part is known as the share. Okay, why it is called a share? Because it is a part of the entire capital. It is not the entire capital, but part of the entire capital. So it is called a shares. Now shares can be again mainly of two types. One is a preference share and another one is a equity shares. So we need to understand the difference between a preference share and an equity share. Now by the name itself, preference, we can understand it has some characteristics. What are those characteristics? It will get some preferences. What kind of preferences? Preferences at the time of winding up, when the company is being dissolved, when the company is being wound up, money will be first paid to these preference shareholders. Then at all, if money is left, it will be paid to the equity shareholder. So this is the first difference of between preference shares and equity shares. Now what about the other differences? This is the first one, that is Money will be first paid to the preference shareholders, then to the equity shareholders. The other difference is at the time of paying dividend also, dividend is first paid to the preference shareholders, and if some money or if some profit is still left after paying dividend to the preference shareholders, then dividend is being paid to the equity shareholders. So over here also preference shareholders are getting some advantage, extra added advantage of getting dividends. So dividends are first paid to preference shareholders, preference dividend is paid, then equity dividends are being paid. So both these are advantageous for the preference shareholders, or you can say preference shares. Still, if you see in our country, there is very limited scope for preference shares, or you will see almost there are no preference shares in our country. Because the third point of difference among them is preference shares are not actually traded in any of the stock exchanges, and secondly the rate of dividend of preference shares are fixed. The amount of dividend that will be paid to the preference shareholders are fixed, whereas the amount of dividend to be paid to the equity shareholders vary. That means that can be decided by the board of directors. Okay, if the board of directors decide that this year there has been a huge amount of profit, a huge sum of dividend can be given to the equity shareholders. But the amount of dividend that is to be paid to the preference shareholders always remains the same. It does not change. Okay, so that is a reason. Actually, preference shares are mainly for investors who are a little bit cautious in nature, and for that purpose, these preference shares are not too much. What do I say? Not too much attractive to the investors who want to invest in the share market. So this was the difference, simple difference between equity shares and preference shares. Now, before moving on to the transactions, how transactions are done for equity shares, I'll just talk about one or two small concept which will help undergraduate students like you to understand the entire shares chapter a little bit better. Now you must have done, as you all are commerce students, you must have done the final accounts portion. You have done the entire final accounts. You have done balance sheet. In the balance sheet, under and equity and liabilities, you will see there is this point which is share capital, right? Under share capital, you will see there are different types of capital. First, it is written authorized capital. What is authorized capital? Authorized capital is that amount of capital. It is the largest amount of capital which is being authorized by the board of directors, or which is written in the memorandum and articles of associations, which can be issued by the company. It has been like taken permission while registering the company that this is the maximum amount of capital that the company can issue. That is known as authorized capital. Then again, out of this authorized capital, some of the capital are being issued to the general public. That is known as issued capital. Out of authorized capital, a certain portion is being offered to the general public for their subscription. That is known as issued capital. So authorized capital is the total, you can say it is the total bucket. Out of the total bucket, a certain quantity is being offered to the general public so that they can subscribe to their shares, and this is known as issued capital. And after issued capital comes the subscribed capital. Whatever is offered to the general public, it is not always mandatory that the general public will take along or the take up all the shares which are being offered for sale. So the amount of capital that is being taken up by the general public, that is known as subscribed capital. Okay, so ultimately in the balance sheet, in the liability side of the balance sheet, the amount of subscribed capital is taken into consideration. Though we write all the three types of capital, that is how whatever amount is my authorized capital, then again I write whatever amount I have already issued to the general public or offered to the general public for subscription, and then we write the subscribed capital. That means the actual capital which the general public has taken up, and I have received money for it from it. Okay, so that is my subscribed capital. So these are the three types of capital that is being showed, three types of share capital that is being showed in the balance sheet. Again, under the subscribed capital there are two subheadings, that is subscribed and fully paid up, and subscribed and not fully paid up. Now what do we mean by fully paid up and not fully paid up? From this portion only I will come directly into the concept of issue of shares and how it is to be recorded. But first, let me explain what is subscribed and fully paid up. Subscribed and fully paid up means when shares are being issued to the general public has applied for the shares and paid up all the due money that is to be paid for the shares. The entire money for the shares has already been paid up. That means the general public has already taken up the entire, taken up the share and already paid the entire money for the share. These shares are known as subscribed and fully paid up shares. These are known as subscribed shares, subscribed and fully paid up shares. What about shares which are subscribed but not fully paid up? Subscribed but not fully paid up. There are certain shares which are subscribed but not fully paid up. This means these shares has been subscribed uh, by the general public, but due to some reason the entire amount of money for the shares has not yet been paid by the subscribers or the general public. There might be two reasons. One is the company itself has not yet asked for the entire money. It might have only taken 60% of the value of the shares, and remaining 40% it will take afterwards. Or there might be another reason, that is the company has asked for the money, but it has been defaulted by the public. It has been defaulted by the shareholder or the subscriber. Okay, so these shares are recorded under subscribed but not fully paid. Okay, now let us come directly to the concept of like how we are going to record these transactions. Transactions are to be recorded in the books of accounts. That is the most important part, most important thing that a accountant should do. So let us come to the different entries or transactions that are to be recorded while shares are issued. Now, first, you can see on your screen that when a company issues shares, it is usually done by taking the money from the shareholders in installments. So this is very important to understand that in this concept of recording of transaction, though this is a bit primitive way of recording shares, it is not actually in real practice, it is not done like this, but theoretically over a period of time, this is how we have been recorded, and this is how everything is being taught to record in the books of accounts. Okay, now you see there are accounting softwares, and they do the thing digitally, electronically, but the concept behind recording this transaction goes like this. Now when shares are being issued, the entire money of the shares are not taken up, are not called upon by the company at once. Or you can say in simple terms that the money for a particular shares are taken up in installments. Whatever money I'm selling, say for instance, I'm a company and I want to sell shares to the general public. So whatever is the amount of share, whatever is the face value of the share, or whatever is the issue price of the share, I'll take up that money from the general public in installments, not at once the entire money. Okay, so it will be taken up in small amounts, small installments, and there are different names of these installments, and there is a procedure of doing it. So let us delve into it. Okay, when a company floats its share for subscription by the general public, the interested investors first need to apply for the shares by paying the requisite amount of application money. Now, directly coming to the installments, what happens is whenever a share is being floated means offered to general public for subscription. If shares are being offered to general public for subscription, what happens is the first installment for the share is to be paid, and the first installment is known as application share application. Okay, the first installment is needed to be paid for interested people, and this is known as share application. Okay, let me see if I can use some markers. Okay, so you see, the first money that is needed to be paid, it is known as share application, or it is also known as share application money. The first installment is share application. Now, what happens is people who are interested in buying our shares, they will pay this particular amount and they will apply for the share. This doesn't guarantee that they will be given that particular share. They are applying it. That is the reason it is known as application money. First installment is known as share application. Entire value of the share, say for example, just a share hypothetical example, the value of a particular share is rupees 10. Now the company has decided to issue this 10 rupees share to the general public in 4 equal installments, the first installment of which will be of rupees 3, and the remaining 7 rupees will be paid in other 3 installments. So we will come into will come later what are these other 3 installments called. So the first installment is called application. So people who are interested to buy shares of this company will pay rupees 3 each for one shares and apply for these shares. Okay, if the company is issuing a huge number of share, a particular number of share, whatever is the number of share I as a general public, if I want to apply for the share, if I say for example I want to take up 100 shares, so I'll pay 300 rupees and will apply for 100 shares, because each share's application money is rupees 3. So this is how we apply for the share. So the first installment is known as application. Now, after the applications are being received, what happens is the company sees that how many applications are being received. Okay, if the minimum subscription, what is minimum subscription? Minimum subscription is the percentage, or you can say it is the number of shares, minimum number of shares that are to be applied by the general public so that the allotment can go forward. Okay, now what is allotment? The second installment is known as allotment. Out of the shares that are being applied by the general public, we will give them shares. We might give them all the shares, we might give them a certain portion of shares. We'll come into it later on. The second installment, whenever we are taking it, it is known as allotment. Before going to allotment, first let us see how the transactions of application is done. So as I said, subsequently the company allots the shares to its applicants and makes the second installment due, which is known as share allotment money. So the second installment, first installment is, so the first installment is application money and the second installment is allotment money. Okay, now moving on, if there are other installments, if there is a third installment, there is a fourth installment, if there are other installments, those are known as call money. Third installment is known as the first call. Though it is first, that doesn't mean it is the first installment, because the first 2 installments are already share application money and allotment money. So the first installment is application, second installment is allotment, third installment is first call, then fourth installment is second call, then so on and so forth. But the last installment is called the final call. Okay, all these are called calls because the company calls for the money, calls the shareholders that please pay your money within this day, within this time period. So all these are known as call money. The third installment is first call. The second installment is, the fourth installment is the second call, and whatever is the last installment, that is known as the final call. Okay, now whenever we are issuing the shares, you need to understand that all the shares has a particular value that is written in the balance sheet. Say your total capital of the company is 10 lakh rupees, and you want to divide this total capital of 10 lakh rupees into 1 lakh shares. So what will be the value of each share, the face value of each share or the nominal value of each share? That will be 10 lakh divided by, there are 1 lakh shares, so 10 lakh divided by 1 lakh. So per value or the face value or the nominal value of each share will be rupees 10. Okay, so this is known as the per value or the actual value at which it is being recorded in the balance sheet under the head share capital. Okay, so the issue price, the price at which the shares are being issued in the market can be higher than the par value, can be at par value, or it might also be lower than par value. Say for example, your face value of the company or par value of the face value of the share or par value of the share is rupees 10 each. The shares can be issued at a price which is higher than 10 rupees. It can be issued at rupees 10, or it can be issued at a price which is lower than 10 rupees. So what are these called? If the shares are issued at a price which is higher than the par value, higher than rupees 10, it is known as shares are issued at a premium. Extra money that we are taking is known as the premium. If the shares are issued at face value, that is 10 ka share hum log 10 we are selling it at rupees 10 itself, so this is known as per value. Okay, and if the shares are being sold at a value which is less than rupees 10, maybe 8 rupees, 9 rupees, it is known as shares are being issued at a discount. So in India now, shares cannot be issued at a discount. So there are two ways of issuing it. Either it has to be issued at par, or it has to be issued at a premium. Okay, so either it will be issued at par, or it will be issued at a premium. So let us see what are the journal entries. So what will happen is, first, when we go for issue of shares, the first what we are going to do is we will take the first installment. Okay, I have already discussed we need to take the first installment, and the first installment is known as application money. So what will happen, we will tell the general public that we are willing to offer to the general public some shares. If you are willing enough, you can apply for the shares by depositing this amount of money. Now whenever we are collecting the first installment, the first entry that is there is bank account debit to share application. The first installment is bank account debit. Bank account will be debited because money is going into bank, in the bank account of our company, and share application account will be credited. So first entry, bank account debit to share application. So this is how the first installment money is being collected. Entire first installment money is being collected through this. Now after the entire application money is being collected, we need to see how much application has been received. I have already discussed a minimum subscription is required. Say if I am issuing 1 lakh shares, minimum subscription of 90%, that is 90,000 shares are to be applied by the general public. But it might also happen that the general public doesn't know how much shares has been applied by others. So a larger number of shares has been applied by the general public, and the total application that has been received exceeds the 1 lakh shares that are to be issued. That means the total application received is more than the number of shares that are being offered. We have offered 1 lakh shares, but the application is being received for more than 1 lakh shares, 1 lakh 20, 1 lakh 30, 1 lakh 40, 1 lakh 50, whatever be it, it is more than 1 lakh shares. So what is to be done? What is to be done? The first thing that is to be done is we need to see how much extra shares we have issued, how much extra shares how much extra shares application money has been received, and If it is more than the number of shares that we have put up for the general public to accept, then there are two ways of dealing with it. The extra shares, say for example, I have issued 1 lakh shares, I have received application for 1 lakh 30,000 shares. Okay, now I have received application for extra 30,000 shares. So what I can do for with this extra 30,000 shares application? So there are two ways of dealing with it. One is, if there are 30,000 extra shares, so I can make a refund. I have already taken 30,000 extra shares money from the from the applicants. So what I can do is I can refund uh, the amount for these 30,000 shares. This is one way of doing it. And the other way of doing is pro rata allotment. So first we will, the first I'll let you see the transaction which is to be done if there is a refund. Okay, so what is the entry for refund? It is simply the reverse entry for receiving the money. First is share application account debit to bank. This is the entry for the reverse entry after you have received a certain amount of money. So while we have received it, we have done bank account debit to share application, but as we are refunding the money, the share application account is debited to bank account. Now you see, if there is excess application only, it can be dealt in two ways. If there is no excess application, it need not be done. Only when there is an excess application, we are dealing it in two ways. One is refund, one is pro rata allotment. Before that, what we are going to do is actual number of shares which are to be allotted. Say I have with my example, I have told you I am trying to issue 1 lakh shares. So the money for this 1 lakh shares will be transferred to share capital account. So entry for transferring this application money to share capital, that means we are transferring the amount of application money that we have got to our share capital. So we are forming this share capital account. So the entry goes like this: share capital account debit to share capital, share application account debit to share capital. Share application is being debited, and share capital is credited. So this is how we are forming the share capital account, and this is the first installment money which is transferred to the share capital account. Now we can transfer only up to 1 lakh shares, but excess money, excess applications that I have received, that will either be refunded or it has to be allotted on a pro rata basis. Either it has to be refunded or it has to be allotted in a pro rata basis, or both can be done simultaneously. Some of the money is being refunded and the other remaining is allotted on a pro rata basis. Now what is this concept, pro rata concept? This is the most important thing in this chapter, pro rata allotment, and most of the students find it difficult to understand what is pro rata allotment. Okay, pro rata allotment is, for example, you go to a particular shop every day, you go to a particular shop to buy vegetables every day, and you have more or less a bill of rupees 70-75, like that. Okay, and every day it is more or less same. So one day what happened, you go to this shop and you have purchased vegetables for worth rupees 70, and you give that vegetable wala a 100 rupee note. Okay, and this person, since it is extra money has been given to you, this person has this option of returning rupees 30. Now wo 30 rupees, he might not have that khujra 30 rupees with that person. So what you can say is, okay, you keep the money for today, I'll come back tomorrow, I'll again do purchases from you, because anyways I'll have to I'll again have to pay tomorrow. And when I pay tomorrow, what you can do is, you can adjust this 30 rupees with my payment which I will be making tomorrow. So again, the very next day, he goes to this shop, buys vegetables. Again, maybe his bill is say for 80 rupees. Now 30 rupees he has already paid from beforehand. So remaining 50 is he only needs to pay. So this is pro rata allotment. How this is done in case of issue of shares. Say we have issued 1 lakh shares, applications are received for 1,30,000 shares. 10,000 shares का हम लोगों ने refund कर दिया. We have given back them the money. Okay. Now still there is money for 1,20,000 shares. Now I decided that this extra 20,000 shares का money which I'm having with me, I'll go for pro rata allotment. Okay, I'll go for pro rata allotment. So now what I will do, I'll give 1 lakh shares to the applicants of 1,20,000 shares. That means if I do a ratio 1 lakh is to 1,20,000, which comes to around 5 is to 6, people who has applied for 6 shares, for every 6 shares that people has applied, we will give them 5 shares. One who has applied for 60 shares, I will give them 50 shares. One who has applied for 120 shares, I'll give them 100 shares. Okay, in the ratio 5 is to 6. Now what will happen? The person who has applied for 120 shares has already given 120 into 3. That is 360 rupees. He has already given 360 rupees. But what was his amount due? Because he has only been allotted 100 shares. So amount due would have been, he should have given 100 into 3, that is 300 rupees. So 60 rupees he has already given extra. Okay, 60 rupees he has already given extra. So this 60 rupees, what will happen? This 60 rupees will be kept with the company and it will be adjusted in the next installment. Very simple concept. Okay, in pro rata allotment, the allotment is done on a particular ratio. Okay, and if extra sum, whatever extra sum that has been received in allotment will be kept with the company and will be adjusted at the time of allotment. Whatever extra money has been received at the time of application will be adjusted with the next installment, that is the allotment. Understood? Simple concept. So ये 1 lakh shares that we have issued, we have received money for 1,30,000, 10,000 I have given refund. Extra 20,000 shares का जो money मेरे पास है, 20,000 into 3, 60,000 rupees, the extra that I have, I'll keep it with me and I will adjust it with the next installment, which is share allotment. So the entry goes like this: share application account debit to share allotment account and to share call account. Okay, we are adjusting the application money with second installment, if needed with the third installment. This is known as pro rata allotment. The extra money that we have received, extra shares application that we have received, we are not returning that money, we are adjusting that money with the second installment. Okay, so this is the way how we can deal with oversubscription. If we have issued 1 lakh shares and we have received subscriptions for more than 1 lakh shares, so this is how we can deal with it. So this is where our first installment thing, everything that comes under the first installment is already complete. What we have done, just we can have a recap. First installment, first things first, we receive money from general people and the first transaction is bank account debit to share application. The number of shares that we have allotted, we convert them into share capital to share. तो इसका entry क्या हो गया? Share allotment to share capital account. Now, if there is oversubscription, excess application is being received, we can deal it in 2 ways. One is via a refund. We just give them back their money through our bank account. So the entry is share allotment to bank account. Now, if you do not want to give back the money, and if you decide to adjust the money in the next installment, we can also do it. That is known as pro rata allotment. An entry for pro rata allotment is share application account debit to share capital. So share application account debit to share allotment to share call, if the third installment is needed at all. Okay, so what is pro rata allotment? The shares are allotted proportionately and the excess money received in application is utilized towards the money due in subsequent installment. So this is how we come to a close of the first installment. Now let us move on to the second installment. Now, as I have already discussed, What is the second installment called? The second installment is called share allotment. The second installment is known as share allotment. Now, shares can be issued at par as well as at a premium. As I said, if the shares are issued at par, it is known as, the entry goes like this: share allotment to share capital. Very simple entry: share allotment to share capital. But if the shares are issued at a premium, premium means a price which is higher than the par value, which is higher than rupees 10. Okay, so if I'm issuing at rupees 12, so 2 rupees is my premium. So what will be the entry? Share allotment account debit to share capital to securities premium. In securities premium, we put this extra rupees 2, which I have issued the share at a premium. So the premium money goes into the securities premium account. Okay, either any of these two entries will happen. If the shares are issued at par, the first entry will be done. If the shares are issued at a premium, the second entry will be done. Now, what is this entry for? Why we are doing this entry? By this entry, we are asking our shareholders to give the money, or we are transferring the allotment money to share capital money. We are transferring allotment to capital. Earlier, if you notice, in the first installment, what happened? First, we received the money, then we transferred the money to share capital. But subsequently, for all the remaining installments, what will happen? First, we will transfer the money to capital, then we will receive the money. Okay, so over here in allotment, first we are transferring the money to share capital through this entry: if at par, share allotment account debit to share capital; if at a premium, share allotment to share capital to securities premium. Okay, so this is the entry how we transfer the money to share capital. Now moving on, once this money has been transferred to capital account and the shareholders are being asked to give the money, now what will happen? The shareholders will start paying their money in the bank account. So the entry will be bank account debit to share allotment. Now we are receiving money, there will be bank account debit to share allotment. The entry for receiving this money is known as bank account debit to share allotment. Just like the application, when we have received application money, bank account debit to share application. Over here, bank account debit to share allotment. This happens when all the shareholders are paying their money. Now, what might happen is, since this is the second installment, what might happen is there might be one or two or a few shareholders who have paid the first installment, or who have paid the application money, but when it comes to the second installment, they have defaulted. Second installment payment करने के time पे they have defaulted. Okay, if any shareholders fails to pay the money due on allotment, it is known as calls in arrear. In such a case, the entry for application money received will be bank account debit, calls in arrear account debit to share allotment. So what is calls in arrear? Calls in arrear is the amount of money that has been defaulted by the shareholder. Since this is an installment, people has paid the first installment, but they might default in the second installment. Okay, now if there is a default in the second installment, the entry goes like this: bank account debit, calls in arrear account. Calls in arrear is the amount not received, bank account is the amount received, and to share allotment is the total amount due. Okay, so what do we say when a shareholder fails to pay any of the installment? It is known as calls in arrear, and calls in arrear account is being debited along with the bank account. The amount that I have received goes into the bank account, and the amount that has not been received or defaulted goes into the calls in arrear account, and the total money is being credited to the share allotment account. Okay, so this is how the second installment also comes to an end. Okay, second installment यहाँ पे खत्म होता है. First installment application done. Second installment, what we are doing, we are transferring the money to the capital first. Premium is adjusted if there is premium, and then we are receiving the money, and After receiving it, if there are any calls in arrear, we also record it through this entry, bank account debit calls in arrear to share allotment account. Now let us move forward. If there are, obviously in all the sums, share allotment and applications will be there, and along with it there will be at least one or two more installments. So for all the other installments, say either it is first call, second call, third call, final call, whatever be it, the entry goes same. Okay, say for example, if there is the first call mein kya hoga, share first call account debit to share capital. Then if we receive the money, bank account debit to share first call. If we have some calls in arrear, bank account debit, calls in arrear account debit to share first call. Same entry again if there is another installment, if there is second installment, the second call. So what we are going to write? Share second call account debit to share capital account. Again for receiving the money, bank account debit. If there is calls in arrear account debit to share second call. For final call also, same entry. So that is the reason I have written all this together. Whether it is first call, second call, final call, whatever be it, first the money will be due and transferred to share capital. Then the money will be received by this entry. If there are no calls in arrear, we will not write calls in arrear. If there is calls in arrear, then we are going to write it through this entry: bank account debit, calls in arrear account debit, share first call, second call, final call account. Okay, so this will go on till our final call, till all the calls or all the installment money is being due, is being called upon by the company, and money is being paid by the shareholders. Okay, so this will carry on till the final call. Now, what happens if some of us do it? I have my two-wheeler loan. I don't like it to pay every month my two-wheeler loan. I'm paying it upfront. एक साथ पूरा पैसा payment कर दिया. Okay, if someone is paying for a certain shareholder pays his subsequent installment money along with current installment. ठीक है, अभी के installment के साथ he is trying to pay all the remaining installments together in advance. This is known as call in advance. The entry for call in advance is when he is paying it is bank account debit to calls in advance. Money is being received at the time of this calls in advance. For receiving calls in advance, bank account debit to calls in advance. Now, when the actual time of payment will come, we will adjust this calls in advance with the first call, second call, or final call. Okay, we have received the money. And we have credited this account, which is known as calls in advance account. Now, when the actual time for payment will come, we will not receive the money anymore. So instead of debiting bank at that time, we will debit calls in advance and we will credit the account. Either it is first call, second call, or final call. Okay, so this is the case for calls in advance. This might also be there in your sums, students of all undergraduate colleges and universities. So there might be a situation where a particular shareholder is paying the entire money upfront together, okay, or is paying along with some other installment together. That is known as calls in advance. For calls in advance, we are going to debit the bank account and create a new account by crediting the calls in advance. Then when the actual time for payment of this money comes, he will not be paying anymore. So instead of debiting the bank account, we will debit calls in advance account and we will credit the concerned share first call, second call, or final call account. I hope I am visible and my
Yes, sir.
is visible and I'm audible, right?
Yes, sir. Right.
Okay. So
Please
I'm
continue.
yes, thank you. So moving on from here, what we are left over with is so what we are left over is we have seen certain number of shareholders might have failed or defaulted in payment of their installments. installments. Now what we are going to do with them? Some of them has only paid the application money and have not paid all the other installments. Some of them might have paid application and allotment money, remaining money they have not paid. So what the company will do? Company will send them notices. The company will ask for the money repeatedly. Even then, if the payments are not being made, the directors will call for a meeting and they will forfeit the shares. What do we mean by forfeit the shares? You see, the shares for which there has been a default in payment, the directors can forfeit them. Forfeit means they will take back these shares from the shareholders. Okay, like if you take a bike, if you take a car on EMI, and if you do not pay the installment, what will happen? The bank people will come and they will take back your car, they will take back your bike or the house that you have kept for mortgage. Okay, so what will happen is the directors will take back the entire share. Okay, and this is known as share forfeiture. And the entry for share forfeiture is if the shares were initially issued at par. If the shares were initially, as we have seen that the shares can be issued at par or at a premium, if the shares were originally issued at par, then the entry goes like this: share capital over here will be debited. You see, in all the other cases, share capital is credited. Only over here share capital is debited. Why share capital is debited? Because some of the shares are being cancelled over here. So share capital account debit to call scenario. This is the total amount of money that I have not yet received for these shares. So call scenario account credit to share forfeiture account. This is the total amount of money that has been received by me. So this is not received, this is received. Call scenario is amount not received, this is the amount received. So if you add up these two, it becomes the amount of the shares. Say I have not received money for 100 shares. Kitna? I have not received calls all the three remaining installment is 7 rupees. So 100 into 7 calls in arrear will be 700. What is the amount of forfeiture I have received? How much? Only the application money, 3 rupees. So 100 into 3, 300 rupees. So 700 plus 300 total comes up to 1000 rupees, which is the value of the share capital. So share capital account debit to call scenario to share forfeiture account. This is when the shares are initially issued at a issued at a par. Now the shares can also be issued at a premium. Then the entry goes like this: share capital account debit, securities premium will also be debited to call scenario and to share forfeiture account. Now this securities premium will be debited only if the premium remains unpaid. Premium kahan pe pay hota hai? The premium is being paid in the second installment, which is known as allotment. Now, if and if only the allotment money has not been received, then securities premium will be debited over here. That means the securities premium will be cancelled. But if a shareholder, say for example, he has paid the application money, he has paid the allotment money, he has paid the first call money only for unable or only has defaulted in paying the final installment. So he has already paid the securities premium money. If someone has already paid the securities premium money, then the securities premium will not be debited. What is the concept behind it? The concept is if the securities premium is already received, it will be with the company and it will not be cancelled out. Okay, but if it has not been received, then we cannot show a securities premium which is not yet been received. So we will cancel out. Okay, then the entry goes like this: share capital account debit, securities premium account debit to call scenario to share forfeiture account. So what we are doing, what the directors have done, people who have not paid the different installment for the shares, they have taken back the shares from the shareholders, and they have also kept with them the amount of money that they have already given. थोड़ा पैसा जितना उन लोगों ने दिया था, they have kept that money with them. They have not returned the money, as well as they have taken the shares from them, and this is totally legal. This is not any kind of dadagiri that I'll take the shares and I'll also not give you the money. This is totally legal. They have they have the right to take back the shares, and they will also not refund or not give away the installment or the money, a small amount of money that has been already received by them. So this is known as share forfeiture. Some of the shares are being taken back by the directors. Now, what the directors will do with these shares that has been taken up? They will not keep these shares at their own home. They will not keep it for any other purpose. So what the directors will do? The directors will go for reissue. Reissue means the shares that we have taken back, we will be further issuing them to someone else. Okay, you see, for reissue of forfeited shares, what will happen? For shares initially issued at par or at a premium, the entry is same. Whether the shares has been issued at par or at a premium, the entry remains the same. What is the entry? Bank account debit, share forfeiture account debit to share capital. So what actually happens is, since these are reissued shares, or in simple terms you can say these are second hand shares, because it has already been sold to someone, and since he has missed the installments taken back by the company and is being sold to some other person. Now most of the time what happens, these shares are sold at a discount, at a price which is less than their face value. Okay, now if the shares have a face value of 10 rupees and are issued at rupees 8 per share, what will happen? We will put 8 rupees in the bank account, we will put 2 rupees in share forfeiture account, and we will put 10 rupees in share capital account. This 2 rupees discount that we are giving at the time of reissue, that will be put in share forfeiture account. So entry is bank account debit, share forfeiture account debit to share capital account. So what is the concept? You see, if someone has defaulted, we take back the money from them. After we take back the shares, as well as we take back the money from them. The money that we have taken back from them is put in a separate account. This is also a reserve account, which is known as share forfeiture account. This is the amount that has been received by them. This is totally a profit for the company. We will utilize some of this money to give discount at the time of reissue. When there is a reissue, we will utilize this money to give a certain amount of discount to the shareholder who is buying these second hand shares or the reissued shares. Okay, and what the directors are doing, the directors are reissuing all the shares or maybe some of the shares that has been forfeited. Okay, now the last entry, there might be a chance of profit. That is the amount of money that we have forfeited. Say for example, we have forfeited 7 rupees for each share. That means we have earlier received 7 rupees for each share. Okay, and out of the 7 rupees we have only utilized 2 rupees for discount at the time of reissue. So remaining 5 rupees, the remaining 5 rupees that has not been utilized becomes our profit. Okay, and that is recorded through this transaction. The unutilized portion of share forfeiture account is the profit on reissue, which is transferred to capital reserve. So this is a capital reserve, this is a profit which is transferred to capital reserve account. Okay, because some of the money that we have forfeited, we have utilized some of it, and remaining it becomes a profit for the organization, and we transferred it to capital reserve. Okay, so this is how all the transactions, all the entries relating to share capital is being done. All the installments are being taken up through the bank account, pro rata entries are being done, then share allotment is done, all the other installments is called and taken up. If there is any default, we put it in the share calls in arrear account. There might be at times where there can be calls in advance. We take the money, we adjust them at the time of actual payment. If there are some default, the directors can forfeit these shares, that is they can take back the shares and they cancel these shares. These cancelled shares are again reissued to some other person, maybe at a price lower than its face value, and the profit that happens due to this entire reissue, forfeiture is and reissue, is put in the capital reserve account. So this is how the entire issue of shares transactions are being done, all the installments and everything, and reissue and forfeiture is being done. So the students of all undergraduate colleges, if you go through this transaction, you will be able to understand that these transactions are more or less same all the time. What you need to do is you need to understand what will be the amounts of this different, what will be the different amount in the of the different sums. So if you the more you practice, the more you will be able to understand what are the amounts that are to be needed to be written in the debit or credit of while you are passing this journal entries. So I hope I have been clear with how the entries with the issue of shares are done. So what I am going to do is I am going to jot down all these points through a small PPT, and then we will end the session. So what I'll do is I'll now share my PPT, and I'll show you. Is the PPT? Okay, it's there. Yes. Is the PPT visible?
Yes, sir, visible.
Okay, okay. So if I do a slide share, are the slides moving?
No, sir, slides are not moving.
Slides are not moving. Okay. Now the slides are moving?
Yes, sir, moving.
Okay, so I'll explain from here. So we have discussed today about the accounting for issue of shares. This presentation will explore what are the accounting principles and the processes involved in the issuance of shares. Let us see. We'll move forward. So first, I have given you a definition of share capital. What is it? Share capital is the element of company's financial structure. It represents the total value of equity or total value of ownership that is being held by the shareholders. Okay, it is the total amount of ownership money that is being held by the owners or shareholders. It reflects the funds contributed by the shareholders in exchange for ownership in the company, and it plays a very pivotal role in the operation of the company. Now, what I have also discussed, what is issued capital, what is authorized capital. What is authorized capital is it is the maximum number of shares a company is legally permitted to issue. It can never issue more shares than the authorized shares. So it is the maximum number of shares that the company is authorized to issue as stipulated in its memorandum of association. Okay, again, what is issued share capital? It is the actual number of shares that has been offered for sale to the shareholders are being actively taken up by the shareholders. Now this is a concept, per value share, no per value share, but in India we only have per value shares. That means each share only have a face value assigned a nominal value per share, typically a small amount which is stated on the share certificate. Now you know that all the share certificates are not issued anymore. We have our shares in our demat accounts. And no per value shares, that means it doesn't have a face value. So the face value or the value of the shares can be determined with the help of market conditions by the movement of market determinants. Now, how this accounting for issue of shares are done? If it is being issued at par, shares are issued at par with no premium or discount, as I have discussed. That means whatever is the face value, shares are also issued at that face value. Cash account is debited for the total amount received for the share of issuance, and share capital account is being credited. Simply, when we do it more efficiently, we do it through different installments. Now, if the shares are issued at a premium, accounting for issue of shares at a premium, now the premium shares are issued at a price exceeding their par value, resulting in a share premium. So the excess money which is above the share par value is known as the premium value. Cash is debited for the total amount received for the share issuance, which includes the par and premium value. The par value is transferred to share capital account by crediting the share capital account, and the excess money is being transferred to share premium account, which is known as the securities premium, as I have already shown you. Now, how accounting for forfeiture and reissue is done? For why forfeiture is done? Some of the shares which some of the shareholders who fail to pay the installments, those shares are forfeited and then they are reissued. Shares are forfeited if shareholders fail to pay calls or installments. The forfeited shares are credited to the share forfeiture account and debited from the share capital account. So the share capital is reduced by debiting the share capital account and they are put into a new account which is known as share forfeiture account. These forfeiture shares are reissued at a price that may be lower than the original issue price. It is usually reissued at a price which is less than the original price. And if there are any profits, that is being transferred to the capital reserve account. So what is our key takeaway from here? Issuing shares is a fundamental part of corporate finance. No company can survive without issuing shares, impacting a company's financial structure and funding opportunities. Understanding these principles which govern the issuance is crucial and effective for financial management and reporting. So as students, we need to understand the concept. What is this shares? Most of us, when we were very young, we found it difficult to understand the concept of shares itself. When once you understand that what is the concept of share, what is a share, it is not a commodity, but it is a way by which the companies are being funded. If you understand the concept, who is issuing it, who is getting the money, who is paying the money, if you understand this concept and if you understand how it is being, the shares are being issued with the help of this installments, then it will be very easy for you to do any kind of sums that is being given from this chapter, which is issue of shares, which is not a very tough chapter. If you can understand this chapter, I can surely say that you will be the most secured while doing the sums from this chapter. But if you do not understand, if you do not go deep into the concepts, the basic things of this chapter, you will all, if you do it mechanically, कि ये debit होता है, वो credit होता है, ये इधर से उधर जाता है, if you do it, you will always find very difficulty in doing the sums from this chapter. Anyways, I hope I was being able to inculcate a little bit of utility towards the students by explaining whatever I could about this particular topic. So this is all I have for today.
Thank you so much, sir, for your detailed and lucid explanation on the issue of share. The way you have developed the basic concepts for the undergraduate students about issue of share, it was really engaging and it will surely help the student. And thank you so much for this wonderful presentation, sir, and bearing
Thank
time with.
you. Thank you
Uh,
to you also and our society, KBSAA. I'm very thankful for giving me this opportunity. Hope we will have many such sessions in future also, and hope our society grows from strength to strength.
yes, sir, sure, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
We are
Okay.
ending this session here. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Sure.